What's going on, everybody? My name is Jason Caine from Bayside, Blue Oaks. Glad that you joined us this morning as we jump into a refuel devotional. Listen, have you ever had to deal with a problem that lasted far longer than you expected? Man, life can be extremely difficult and frustrating when we encounter those types of problems. As an example, about a year ago, all of us were told that we'd have to quarantine in our house for a couple of weeks and then we'd be able to come out because everything was fine. And now, 16 months later, we're still wearing masks everywhere we go. The reality for all of us is we'll experience problems that last longer than we expect. And what do we do when we encounter those types of problems? When you've been going through a difficult time in your marriage and it lasts longer than you expect, what do you do? When perhaps you've been going through a time of infertility in your life, what do you do? When you've been dealing with perhaps a sickness or a financial difficulty that lasts way longer than you signed up for, what do you do? I believe the Bible prescribes an answer for us that can be found in Mark chapter 6, verses 47 and 48. To set up the context, Jesus has just sent his disciples away, and they're going up to Bethsaida by way of the Sea of Galilee. The trip should have lasted about 2 hours for them by boat as they traveled up the Sea of Galilee to Bethsaida. Jesus goes up to a mountain to pray while his disciples are traveling, but hours and hours and hours pass, and they have yet to make it to their destination. For his disciples, this simple 2-hour trip has now turned into an all-night event where they have not reached their destination, and I can imagine that they experienced a certain level of frustration. This is what we read in Mark chapter 6, verse 48. It says, he saw, he being Jesus, the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them. His disciples on this 2-hour trip have lasted all night as they are straining at the oars to get to their destination. I think what the disciples demonstrate and show us in this passage is this, that when we encounter problems that last longer than expected, we've got to keep straining at the oars. I love that the disciples didn't give up in the middle of the water. I love that they didn't begin to doubt whether or not Jesus had told them to go to Bethsaida. I love that the disciples are putting all of their effort forth in order to get to the destination that Jesus has designed for them. Here's the simple solution that I'm offering today. That if you're in a situation that you've been in longer than you expected, please don't stop where you are and keep straining at the oars. Don't give up on your marriage. Don't give up on your future. Don't give up on whatever it is you feel like Jesus has called you to, but keep straining at the oars. Why? Because again, in verse 48, it says that he saw them. I love that we have a promise from Scripture that Christ is not somewhere not paying attention to our trials and to our problems, but he sees us and he knows exactly what we're going through. Many times when we experience problems that last longer than we expect, we can think that God is nowhere to be found. But just as Jesus saw his disciples, God sees you as well. How do we know that? Because Job 36:7 says this, he does not take his eyes off the righteous. Today, if you've been dealing with a problem for longer than you expected, I want you to know that God has his eyes on you. Do not give up. Keep straining at the oars and trust that God is there with you and he sees you. Have a great morning. Thank you.